What's up everybody, it's Connor from EV Sportline. Today we're going to be installing the Rival skid tray on our R1T. This kit is great for protecting the underside of your car and protecting your steering and suspension assembly on that front end. Whether you're just hitting the fire service trails or you're doing some serious off-roading, this kit is great. This kit does fit both the R1T and the R1S, but we'll be putting it on our R1T today. Let's get into your kit contents and the tools needed to install. So first you're going to have your front skid tray hanger as well as your main skid tray. Hardware wise, you're going to have 10 of these smaller button head bolts, 4 medium length button head bolts, and then 4 long button head bolts. You'll have 2 thinner hex head bolts and 2 thicker hex head bolts, 4 spacers, 2 large washers, 14 small washers, 6 mid-size washers, and 10 nut plates. For tools, you're going to need a ratchet, a 17mm socket, a 10mm socket, a 4mm hex, and then a T30 and a T20. I prefer to use T-handles for those, a little bit easier coming on and off the car. Here at EV Sportline, we're lucky enough to have a lift, but we understand that most people will not have access to one. So this install is very easy to do on the ground in your driveway, but you will need to put the car in off-road mode to pick the ride height all the way up. I'll show you how to do that here in a second. So first things first, we need to put the car up into off-road mode so we can raise the car up as high as possible to give us as much working room underneath the car as we can get. So we'll go into our infotainment system and then click your off-road icon here, and then click off-road and click go off-road. And then that will give you this option to set the car to the highest setting, and that's where we want to be. Now that we're under the car, what we need to do first is remove this plastic under tray here. You're gonna have 9 bolts across the front, then 2, and then another 2, and then finally 6 bringing up the back. All right, that's our last bolt. And then our skid tray should just pull right on down and out. You can see super flimsy plastic, doesn't really do anything other than block the underside from water. We want some real protection for some proper off-roading. Our next step is we're going to take our nut plates from the kit and we're going to replace the factory nut plates on the car. You're going to have 2 on the fender liners, left and right, as well as 2 front and center, and then 2 on the fender liners in the rear on either side for a total of 10. And pull them straight out. Going to be a little stiff because they are just held on by being pinched. And then you want to take the kit clips and you want to take the cylindrical side and have that pointing up. Next step, we need to grab our long bolts. So our truck is a 2022 model, so you're gonna use your long button heads. If you have a 2023 and up model or an R1S, you'll use those medium length button heads. So you're gonna take and you're gonna go small washer, medium sized washer, and then your spacer for the 2022 models. If you have a 23 and newer model or an R1S, you will just do small washer, medium washer. So these bolts are going to go in those 2 holes that we just put our nut plates on, as well as the 1 tab on either side of that. And we won't thread them in all the way, we'll just get them started. You may have to pull your front skid tray towards you a little bit. So now that we have our skid tray here, we're going to take it with our long side towards the front of the vehicle. We're going to go ahead and pop this up, and it's going to slot under the spacers, but above the washers on those 4 bolts we just put in. It is going to be a little tricky. I like to try and get 1 started and then kind of pivot the rest of them in. So there we go, I've got 1 of them going. I can kind of just work down the line now, picking those spacers up and getting the bolt in the slot. All right, just like that, we are up on the front and We can let that hang there. Just be careful, you make sure you got it fully in because it can slide back out. Just like the front, shorter or thinner hex head bolts, and you're going to do small washer, big washer, and then those are going to go into these two slotted holes here, and you're just going to put those up and in and get them started, but don't tighten them fully, as we are going to use those to kind of hang our main skid plate off of. I forgot to mention this when we were at the table, but you will also need a 15mm socket. We're going to use that to remove these two outermost gray hex head screws at the back. We're going to pull those out, and these guys are pretty tight, so you may need a good bit of force to break them free. Number 2. All right, let's go grab our main skid plate. So I've got our main skid tray here. The best way to identify which way is up is this little bend here is going to bend up over that hanger bracket that we previously installed. So that's going to be the front of your tray, and it's going to bend up over that bracket. On those two rear bolts, it will slot right into place, that tray from falling down on us, and then get the second one up and in there. And then we're going to grab our 17mm socket. And once we got those tight, we'll work our way back to the front, tightening those two 10mm head hex head bolts, and then the 4 button head bolts all the way at the front. So now that we've got our main bolts installed, we're going to take the small button heads that we have with our remaining small washers. You're going to need 8 of these, and these 4 spots to ensure your fender liners stay tight to your skid tray. You may have to push on the fender liner a little bit to get your nut plate to line up with your skid tray. And if it seems like you're having trouble getting everything aligned, you may need to loosen up the rest of your bolts and reposition and make sure your skid tray is centered, as it may hinder your ability to get these fender liner screws in. Now that we've got all of our fender liner bolts in, last thing to do is to double check all of our tightness on our bolts here, and then torque these 2 rear bolts to 35 foot-pounds, and we're all finished. That's going to be it for our install. If you like what you see, go ahead and leave a like and subscribe, and if you have any questions, leave them in the comment section down below.